First speaker today is Mary Matthews, who comes from Blitz Game Studio, and she'll be talking about the TruSim and what the ways ahead. Mary, to the stage, please.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Once you get up here, you can't see anything, actually, because of all the lights, so I hope you can see me clearly. Blitz Game Studios, I'm Mary Matthews. I'm Strategy and Business Development Director. And what I do is look for ways of using our games technology and our games engine in different ways. So that might be for training and learning. It might be for integration with TV programs. It might be integration with web-based learning or web gaming. All of that is a really exciting time in the games industry at the moment. There's a lot of flux going on, and there's a lot of new thinking. And I'm going to share with you today some of the thinking we have around how to take the real engagement that you find in entertainment video games and translate that into learning and training. First of all, though, I want to introduce you to the studio. We have 5 market-facing divisions. We have Blitz, which is the original brand, and that makes family-friendly games like SpongeBob SquarePants, Karaoke Revolution. Blitz Arcade, which is for casual, short-session, downloadable games. Volatile, which is for mature-rated games, and those are the kind of games that you see in the newspapers and all the comment about. TruSim is our game-based learning division, and I'm going to be showing you some material from that. And we also license our engine to other game developers and other industries that are interested in using games technology. And here's a few of the games we developed in 2009. Quite a variety, as I think you'll see, and quite a difference of genres and styles as well. I don't know whether you noticed, but one of the games there was an exercise game that goes with the television program The Biggest Loser, and that has been extremely successful. It was launched Thanksgiving in the US in 2009, and it's already sold 1 million copies. And I think that just shows the increasing overlap and the blurring of the lines between what people consider to be entertainment and what people consider to be a serious game. Because The Biggest Loser is a serious game. It actually tracks your progress, it sets you targets, it engages you, and it motivates you. But it's sold as an entertainment game. And I think the Nintendo showcase that is in the main lounge area kind of underpins that as well. So you shouldn't need me to tell you that games are now mainstream culture, but perhaps what a lot of people don't realize, and it's worth having a look at the demographics here, is that it's not just about young people. Everybody is playing games, and in fact the fastest growing sector in social networks is 55+, which I think shows you a lot about how much more connected we're all becoming and how we really all enjoy being able to socialize and play together. I love this picture. This is a series of pictures taken by photographer Philip Toledano of people playing games, and I think that really captures the amazement and the astoundingness that you can find in games. What games do really well is reward you for achievement. Any game. And that's what video games have captured. Whether you are solving a puzzle, whether you're killing a baddie, whether you're progressing to the next level, when you get that achievement, when you unlock that achievement, you get that yes feeling. And that's what games do really well, and that's what we want to capture in our serious games. How you reward players for getting it right. Serious games are purposeful. They are games, but they have a purpose. They reward you for learning, and they are immersive. This is a four-dimensional framework that was developed by Professor Sara de Freitas at Coventry University, and in fact she's one of the later speakers this morning, so she may go through this for you in more detail. But what it shows you, when we develop a serious game, these are the areas that we focus on. We worked in partnership with Professor de Freitas and several other universities and a commercial partner as part of a co-funded project sponsored by the Technology Strategy Board. And we learned that you need to really know who the learner is and what they need to learn and where they are now and where they need to go. You need to understand the learning theory that you're going to apply for the desired outcome. You need to understand how you're going to represent what needs to be learned. How high a level of fidelity do you need? What kind of interaction do you need? And also you really need to understand how you're going to deliver it. Is it going to be on a smartphone? Is it going to be on a laptop? Is it going to be on a PC in a workplace? Or is it going to be at home? All of that will guide the design. And very, very unlikely, in our opinion, is that a game will ever be the sole learning tool. It will usually, in fact always, be part of a blended learning solution. So you need to understand how it's going to fit into the other supporting resources. And at the heart of that is the reward. So the characteristics of a serious game are that it is designed to reward learning, that it is built with subject matter experts coming on board and advising the game developer how to create that learning tool. And it should offer tracking and reporting. You should be able to see how the learner is progressing, and you as the learner should be able to understand how you're progressing so that you understand your reward. So this is a video of a playthrough of a game that we developed with Advanced Life Support Group, which is a medical education charity that advises NATO on triage. Triage is the process where you quickly sift casualties for priority of treatment at the scene of an emergency. In this case, there's been an explosion in a high street. There are multiple casualties. The icons that come up when you come next to the casualties allow you to check things like respiration, pulse, capillary refill, whether the casualty is able to respond to you or not. And the condition of the casualties is immediately visible. The underlying medical data that's driving the appearance of these casualties is medically validated and comes from Manchester Royal Infirmary, which of course had to deal with the shopping centre bomb some years ago. I heard anecdotally that someone felt that when they saw part of this clip on the opening video that they felt that it was a bit gruesome. Well, yes, it is gruesome, but that's what paramedics need to see. When we looked at the level of fidelity that was needed in a game like this, that's the feedback that we had, that people needed to understand what it was like to be there. And in the tests and the user testing that we carried out, that's how people actually felt. They really were there. When you've gone through all of the casualties, you're taken to a feedback screen. And during user testing of this, we found that the feedback screen, the first iteration we had produced, was not quite right. People didn't feel they understood how they'd progressed through the game. And again, that brings me back to my point of reward. In this case, the reward is that you successfully triage these casualties, that you get the triage tag right, and that you go through the process of triaging and you do all the checks in the right order. So after iterating, the final screen you'll see coming up now takes you through each of the casualties individually, so you've got a visual clue to remind you of what you've done, and shows you what you got right, what you got wrong in a very immediately visual way. We ran some formal trials, controlled trials, where with Advanced Life Support Group on their Major Instant Medical Management Services course, bit of a mouthful. We ran 2 pilots where we ironed out quite a few issues, including the level at which people played. Our first thought was that we would give the trainees 3 worlds with 10 casualties in each, and we'd expect them to play through 30 casualties in order effectively. We found that people couldn't do that. They needed to be stepped through the learning. And so we revised it, and then we offered a 2 casualty training level, and then 3 casualties, 5 casualties, 7, 8, and 10. In the event, they only went up to 8. But that worked a lot better because by the time they got to 8, they were really much more confident in what they were doing and really getting the reward of doing well. They were split into random groups. They were all surveyed about their attitudes and their experience in gaming. There was one group playing a game, one group doing a traditional tabletop exercise, which was the normal way that the course was taught. And equal time and support was allotted. And then they went through a final exercise where they had a series of made-up real casualties that they had to triage. So the results were that in the tagging accuracy exercise, the game group were much more accurate than the control group. And although it's a fairly small sample, in fact, those results are statistically significant. Now, the step accuracy we found quite shocking, frankly, because you'd expect it to be much better than that, even if they were getting the tags right. So the game is definitely performing better than the control group, but I think that just shows us there's a real hunger for this kind of tool to be able to step up performance. We're not the only ones doing research in this area. This is research from the Royal Military College of Canada about the efficacy of introducing games into training, and their metrics show that actually there's both time and cost savings in using games. What I want to show you now is some work we have in progress where we're working with an NHS trust in the north of England. And this is looking at a policy issue for the NHS and the US of what's called failure to rescue. And this is the fact that far too many people go into hospital and don't come out again because the initial signs of deterioration in the patient are not spotted quickly enough. And then it becomes very acute, and the intervention has to be very severe, and sometimes people don't make it through. I don't know if you remember that about last summer, I think it was published by the King's Fund, some research that showed that people who went into hospital in August had more chance of dying in hospital than people who went in at other times of the year. And sadly, that's because that's when junior doctors come out of university and go onto the wards. And this was an issue that the NHS Trust had pinpointed themselves and they wanted to highlight. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out of this presentation very briefly, and I'm going to launch the game and just play through for you, show you how it works. There we go. So you can go in, and there are 2 ways to play this game. There's passive, which shows you a real-time deterioration of 3 conditions currently. Or there's interactive, where you actually get to be a doctor and go through and check your patient. The game will automatically generate a new patient for you every time. Now, currently, because this is work in progress, there are only male patients, but the male patients can range from around 12 to up to 75-ish. They can be any age, any weight, any ethnicity, and the game will automatically generate that for you. Going forward, we'd expect to be able to have an interface that people will be able to put in their own requests. So if I just show you how this works. So you can go through each of these checks, airways, breathing, circulation, disability, and exposure. And this is the protocol that hospitals expect you to go through. D&D can be, in some hospitals, called something different, and certainly overseas, there are other checks that you go through as well. And again, because this is built in a modular fashion, we'll be able to adapt that for people to be able to choose their own protocols. As you go through each of these, you can see there are interventions that come up along the bottom here. Now, not all of those interventions are correct ones, and obviously it's a test of the doctor to intervene correctly. So this is where we are with our initial patient. At the moment, I'm no doctor, but he doesn't look that ill. So what I'm going to do now is advance the time by 15 minutes. Can you see a change in him? He's breathing a bit more heavily, maybe slightly paler. But just to show you how the game works, I'm going to advance time again. Let's check his airway. His airway is open. You can see he's breathing. He's breathing quite rapidly. His blood pressure looks slightly high. Obviously, it's amazing what you learn doing this job, actually. He's not in pain and he's responsive. And his temperature looks reasonably normal, maybe slightly raised. So I'm going to advance time again. Underlying this game is a series of medical data that is driving the appearance of this character. We've split out drivers for respiration, for pulse rate, for pallor, for sweating. And you can see now this guy actually looks quite ill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the checks again, and I'm going to start to intervene. And the first thing I'm going to do is give him some oxygen. And immediately I get feedback that he's a lot better. And that's my reward for having chosen the right thing to do. So immediately I feel better about this patient's condition. I don't feel so stressed myself. And the game continues through like that. Now, if we check his breathing rate again, it's gone down. Check his circulation, that's gone down slightly. And I can go through each check. I can check his medical history. So I know he's had bowel surgery now. And I know that he's normally healthy. Now, the idea of this is not that the doctor has to diagnose the patient, but that they should understand that these are the protocols that they should follow to ensure they make the correct intervention. This is what underpins this game. It's a decision-making game, and it can be played again and again and again until you find yourself rewarded. Now, if you'll forgive me, I'm just going to go through very quickly and kill this patient so that, there are two ways of getting to the feedback screen. One is to go through all the correct interventions, but that takes some time, and the other is to kill the patient. Now, we've been trialling this with some junior doctors and also Warwick Medical School trainee students. And one of the defining factors about serious games is actually that you assess and trial much more often than you would an entertainment game. An entertainment game, you've got 20 years of heritage plus behind you to understand how to make an engaging game. Serious games, I think we're still at the very beginning of understanding how to make it effective. We've made a great start, but there's still a lot more to explore. So the feedback screen at the moment looks like this, and it shows you simply what you did right and what you did wrong, and it's not good enough. We know that. And the point of going to junior doctors and the people who might use this is to say, okay, what do you need to see? How do you need that feedback? How are you going to be rewarded in this game? The feedback we've had is that the reward is keeping the patient alive and stabilizing their condition, backed up by the feedback that they understand where they really intervened correctly and where they went wrong. And we also know that currently there are not enough options in there for people to understand how to intervene correctly, and it's not as satisfying as it can be. So I hope that gives you an understanding of how, as a game developer, we work very closely with subject matter experts to be able to develop a game that is satisfying and is rewarding. So, just to finally round off, here's our current thinking about how you reward people to play a serious game. So the reward has to be meaningful for the learner. They have to get something out of it. It has to be absolutely connected with their needs as well as the learning outcomes. It has to be appropriate. So, you know, I just went through and killed that patient. If that was a reward in a medical training game, that would not be appropriate. It has to stimulate a desire to continue, so you must be pulled forward by that reward to do it again, to try again, to go to the next level, to test yourself against the game or against other players in a multiplayer scenario. It must be designed in from the start. That's your starting point. What's going to motivate those people to continue to play? You can't do it at the end. You can't say, oh, and you know, we've got all this wonderful content, but what makes people want to continue to play this? It's got to be at the very beginning. And it should be integrated into that blended learning solution. So the reward you get in the game should complement the reward you get for going through the whole learning package. I'll be around for the rest of the morning, so there is time to catch up later if you don't get your question in now, but I think there's just a few moments for a few questions. 2 questions apparently from the floor. If anyone's got any burning questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And there are my contact details. Thank you very much.